Live. And I'm just going to check a couple more things and we'll let some people give chance for people to jump on here. Uh, and I've learned this. Wait a moment before you get going because it gives people a chance to click on to get the notification, especially when we don't start exactly right on time. Let me see here. And we'll click on a couple other things. And I think we are good to go. Okay. Everything looks like it's working. All right. Well, so welcome everyone. With you joining from our group, and I'm just gonna zoom. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not gonna get that zoomed in as much. Okay. Now we got the technical stuff done. All right. Well, welcome. And my name is Jonathan League. I am running this group tonight, this live talk, and this is a part of our group where we chat, we talk about relevant things. So a couple rules going off in the beginning of this is a respectful group. This is a time and a place to share and to communicate and get inspiration, to get ideas, but it's safe, as in we're not here to hate, we're not here to judge, we're not here to put anyone down. We are talking about uh, real life that we all experience. And tonight we are going to be talking specifically, kind of what this whole group is about, is stuck to unstuck, right? And we're going to be specifically talking about 5 conversations that you need to have with your adult child. And I'm going to just move this over just a little bit. There we go. 5 conversations you need to have with your adult child when they are failing to thrive, right? Or failing to launch. That's the term that we're looking for. But that's a common thing. Most people know what that means. And sometimes, well, obviously has a negative connotation. But what we're talking about is you love your child and you want them to find independence. You want them to find support. You want them to find purpose and direction in their life. Uh, and that's what you want for them. So in those moments, it's so hard to see them struggle, right? Maybe you have a child who tried to go off to college and it didn't work out for them. Maybe they didn't know how to handle the responsibilities. Maybe they partied too hard and now they're back in your home. Maybe they didn't even try to go for further education. Maybe they barely squeaked out of high school and they're anxious and they're lost about how to move forward in their life. And so that is a very common situation, right? Maybe your child was really doing well. Maybe they had launched fine. They were moving forward just fine in life, but then something happened, a breakup, they got fired, they got laid off, a health issue, and now they're back at home or they're in their apartment and they're barely employed. They're stuck, right? There's so many reasons why uh, our adult children can get stuck and not know how to pull out of that, how to become unstuck, how to move forward. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about the conversations that you need to have with your adult child to help them find that direction, to find that independence. So thank you for watching. For those of you who don't know, I am Jonathan League. I am a family therapist. I'm also an addictions counselor, and get on here every week. We do this group, we do this talk, and it's very okay to be interactive. I've already pulled out some questions that people have asked over the week about this topic, and we will answer those at the end and any other questions that you may have. All right. First of all, as a parent, I don't want you to go to blame. I don't want you blaming yourself that your adult child is struggling. So many times I tell parents that we actually don't want to remove all the struggle. We don't want to see our kids struggle, but they need to struggle, especially the older they are. That's where they build the character. That's where they learn how to build confidence when they can successfully work through that struggle. That's really what we're talking about. If you're watching this, it's likely that you have a child who is struggling, an adult child who is not finding that independence, is not finding that purpose, not finding that direction, and they're stuck, right? So we want to use this situation to help them learn, to help them build character, help them build strength. And if you are blaming yourself as a parent, what did I do wrong? Where did I mess them up? Right? That's not going to help. It's against the point. And many times, yeah, you're really missing it when you go to that place of shame. Right? We want to see this as is not about blame, but as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to move forward. That's what we're talking. So no blaming, no shaming yourself. But that being said, let's dig into these conversations that you need to have with your adult child, right? And these conversations are about moving things forward. First one, understand why your child is stuck. Now, why do I say that? Right? So many times, and I have this in therapy, I have this when families come to me. Uh, they want their child to get unstuck, right? So they instantly jump to what needs to happen, right? They need to get a job, they need to get back in school, they need to get clean, they need to, and all of these things, that the things they don't like that they want their kid to stop, and all the things that they want their child to start doing. And I agree with most of those. I mean, most of the time I agree. Those are good things, right? They need to stop the bad habits, get good habits, start taking action steps. But do you really understand why they got stuck in the first place? You think you do, but you don't, right? You don't know it fully. Not if you have not had this conversation. If you haven't had this conversation of understanding, of empathy, um, then I'm going to say you don't fully understand. So, what is this conversation? Right? It's really a story. Right? That's how I talk. When I'm talking with a young adult or I have a family and we're talking about this, I want to know the story. I want them to talk about the story of how their life developed, how they got stuck, right? Maybe they were off at college and they partied too hard, right? Maybe they were uh, full of anxiety and they couldn't motivate themselves to go out and do what they need to do because they were afraid of rejection or they're afraid of failing, right? But I want to really dig into like what was going on. Where did they first start feeling anxious? Where did they first start doubting themselves? Where did they start making some bad choices? And how did that lead to where they are now? I have yet to talk to a young adult who is stuck, right? They're stuck. They're not moving forward. I've yet to talk to one that's told me, like, you know what? I'm totally okay with this. I'm okay that I'm completely dependent upon my parents or other people. I'm okay that I have no purpose and direction. I'm okay that I'm addicted to my phone or porn or drugs, and I don't have a way out. No, they never say that. Right? Sometimes they're putting on a thick shell, a front, like I can handle this and everything's fine and leave me alone. But when I dig into it, they're not happy about their situation. There's real anxiety in there. There's real shame in there, right? They know that they're not doing what they need to be doing and they're not where they want to be. And they also feel disappointment from their parents. So we've got to take time to have that conversation and understand why they got stuck, what happened, and how they're feeling about themselves. And here's why. Right? One, if you just jump into problem solving and making lists and plans about how to move forward, um, if you jump to that first, you're probably going to miss the very cause and reason that this happened in the first place, right? And the cycle will repeat. And many of you know what I'm talking about. You've had those situations where you you've jumped into problem solving. All right, let's do this, let's do that, and it doesn't work, right? Because you haven't connected and understood the problem in the first place, right? I don't want to belabor this point, but it's huge. So many times I have to go back and say, hey, we've got to have a conversation about why this happened in the first place. Here's the other reason you want to do that. Think about yourself. When someone takes the time to get you to really understand what's going on and why you're struggling, it means so much, right? You took the time to understand me and what I'm struggling with and the situation, right? So you make a connection, and that connection is awesome, right? Because they feel heard, they feel understood. All right. Next conversation piece. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about finding the escape. We're going to have a conversation about what is the way and the things that they are using to escape. There's always some form of avoidance, right? It's just human nature. But when a young person is stuck, uh, the pain, the shame, the discomfort, uh, they want to escape that. It's very natural, a natural process. So they want to. What is the addictive behavior, right? What is the escapism? Are they going to their phone? Are they getting lost in the internet? Are they um, are they getting into addictive behaviors that get them out of the mind? Porn is a common thing, internet, all that kind of stuff, right? So this is what you want to be looking for. And it's an honest conversation. Where is the escape? Right? What are you using to avoid your situation? It's always there, right? And like I said, I give you a bad list. Let me give it a better. It's usually uh, internet, some sort of media, uh, pornography, drugs, or it could be relationships. It could be, but it's that thing of like, I don't want to deal with what's going on. I'm going to avoid it, and then I'm going to move on to something else. That is what we want to identify. We want to find the escape, and we want to talk about it, right? And the conversation is what are you doing to avoid? What are the ways that you are escaping moving forward? We've got to identify that. We've got to call it out, not in a shameful way, but in a way of understanding this. This is a problem. You've developed a bad habit and a mechanism, and that has to end. So it's a compassionate conversation, but it's a real one. Right? So you took time to understand, why did you get stuck? Let's connect on that. I hear you. I understand you. By the way, that first conversation, just because you take time to understand what your child is struggling with does not mean you agree with it or think it's healthy or approving of it. What you're saying is, I understand why you're in this place, right? So you take the time to understand, and then we talk about what is causing you or what are you using to avoid moving forward. So you find that escape. Excuse me. So the next conversation, the third conversation that we want to have is we want to end the cycle of broken promises. End the cycle of broken promises. You know what I'm talking about, right? You've probably heard, I promise I'm going to go get that job. I promise I'm not going to smoke as much. I promise that I'm going to help out around here more. I promise I'm going to take better care of myself. The promises go on, but they're broken over and over and over. We want to end that cycle. And the way you end that cycle is you start focusing on action steps, like real life behavior changes. Because the promise is often the end of a conversation. Okay, you need to make a change. All right, I promise I will. I promise I'll do X. Right? Okay, no more talking. I promise I'm going to do it. But nothing has changed. That's what you need to focus on. It's great that they're motivated. And many times they are motivated because they're having a conversation after being called out on something or some sort of consequence, right? They're not paying their bills or they got in trouble or whatever it is, right? Or everyone's just fed up with what's happening. And so in that moment, they might be very motivated. And I often don't question their motivation. I don't say, in fact, what I usually say to that young person is, I believe you're motivated right now. I just don't believe it's going to happen. I don't believe you're going to change because the promise is not enough. That's just willpower, right? That's just good intentions. There has to be a plan. So you want to talk about the plan. And this kind of goes with anyone. When they promise something, but they don't have a plan, they don't have a way of backing it up, like, okay, I'm actually going to go talk to a therapist about my anxiety. I'm going to go to this group that's going to help me with addiction. I'm going to uh, give more accountability, let you see where my money is going or where I'm going to be. Or, if there's not those action steps, then what is happening is you're in the promise realm and you're not in the action zone. Right? So it needs to be a conversation about how are you going to keep that promise, right? And that's the progression of it. You took the time. What's going on with you? How did we get stuck? How did this happen? What are you feeling? What is this like? And then we're going to talk about how are you avoiding? What is the escape that you're using to avoid? What is the addiction that is holding you down? And then we're going to talk about, all right, we need a plan, right? So we're going to end the broken promises. Let's stop working on promises. Let's get on a plan. I often say, don't believe the promise, believe the plan. And then the fourth thing is you got to make that plan. Right? And the fourth conversation, it's a cooperative conversation. This is not just telling your adult child what they have to do. Right? It's this, okay, what has been happening isn't working. We need to come up with a plan about how to get there. And what are the small steps that you can take? What are the things on a daily basis? What are the things in the next week? What are the steps that we can all agree on? Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking in this moment. If we make a plan, are they going to follow through with it? Right? We've tried to make plans before, but this is where the progression is very important. You've taken the time, you're connecting with them. The idea is to get them on board that we need to actually have a plan. And the plan itself is likely not going to work right away, right? Maybe it will, and I hope that for you, but this is hard. They're in a very difficult place. They're going to come up with steps and they're going to struggle. But that's where the struggle is necessary. They are going to face their anxiety. They make a plan. It's something that hasn't worked. They've tried this before. They haven't had as much success. And so they're going to start trying again and they're going to face the anxiety, right? The doubts are going to come up, right? Or the temptations to escape are going to come up, or whatever is going to happen that has been derailing them all along. More of the internal and sometimes the external stuff, like maybe their old friends are coming around and talking them into the bad behavior again or avoiding. But the challenges, the barriers, the difficulties are going to come out in that moment. Right? That is the opportunity to work, right? That's where you have these other conversations where you say, let's keep going. Was a step too big? Do we need to make a smaller step? Do we need to make a change? But really, what I do with so many of the young people I work with and families is let's all get on the same page here, right? This isn't just about parents telling their children what to do, their adult children. It's about everyone agreeing, like, hey, this is a good step and moving forward. And when there's anxiety, when there's depression, when there's we need a better technique, that's the furthering of the conversation. Let's solve this together. Let's keep working on this. Many times parents will say to me, in fact, I had someone ask this question earlier, how do I know they're ready for this next step? How do I know that they can handle this? Well, you got to let them try, right? There's got to be a moment. Now, it's got to be realistic. Right? You don't want to be asking them to do something that is too much too quickly. But anything that you are doing for your child that they are capable of doing for themselves, that starts to rob their confidence. It robs them of the opportunity. And I know these things haven't worked over and over and over in the past, but what you want is you want the the uh, you want the opportunity to work on things. Now, I promise you guys, I will get to questions. I don't know if you guys saw this before, but uh, I said I'm going to do questions afterwards. I want to talk through this thing, then I'll look through those. All right, here is the last thing. All right, let's follow it. You started with a conversation about understanding why they were stuck. Then we talked about find the escape route, how they are avoiding taking the action steps, the things that are keeping them stuck, their addictions, their avoidant behavior, all that kind of stuff. And then we talk about ending the cycle of promises. It's really changing the conversation instead of, hey, something needs to change. Okay, I promise I'm going to change. And then that looping and looping and looping. No, we've got to move to an action step. We've got to move to a plan. How are you going to keep the promise? And that's going to be cooperative. We're going to say, let's work on this together because everyone wants the same thing. All right. And then the last conversation in this is it's a conversation about creating accountability and support. Like I said, when they struggle, uh, that's the opportunity for growth. So we want to talk about accountability. Many times, what I see with families is they get to this place of um, we have a plan, everyone agrees, we're all motivated, and then it's not really talked about again, right? Your adult child needs more support. They need more connection, and they need that accountability. And it's not accountability. It's like we're watching you, and we want to, we're gonna come down on you if you mess up or if you don't do this. No, it's more of we're checking in with you, right? There's going to be support. We're cheering you. We're there for you. So let's talk about how it went tomorrow. Let's talk about it later at dinner. Let's talk about support. And what are the other supports we need to put in place, right? Do you need to talk to a counselor? Do you need to uh, do we need to involve some other people? Do you need to open up to your friends about what's going on? It's where you have that accountability and support. So those are the conversations, and of course there's many more, and there's a lot more details with that. But that is what the starting point. Those are kind of a guide of the things that you want to talk about. So let's dig into some questions that happened last week first, and then I have some people. I don't know if you guys do this, but you can mark your questions anonymous and then they don't show up. And I know some people have been doing that. Some people just they're worried about they're talking about personal stuff and they don't want that to be seen. So let me look at some of it, and that's totally fine. All right. All right. Yeah, I had someone talking about honestly, it sounds like maybe this is more of a younger person, but they were talking about that they use alcohol and marijuana regularly, and it doesn't mean that it's keeping them from moving forward. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who can use substances and still be functional. Got to argue, is that really healthy, right? Just because you're able to get through your day, just because you're able to work, is that really how you want to be living? It works, right? You can get high, you can drink, you can do those things to take the edge off, um, to I don't know, to cope, right? That it is possible, but is that really what you want, right? And many times I've found that when I'm talking to a young person, their usage, the way that they're coping with marijuana and alcohol, they're really not that okay with it, right? And when they really start talking about it, they start to see how, yes, I'm getting through my day, yes, I'm accomplishing things, but I'm also using it to escape. I'm also not dealing with things, or I'm maybe not hitting my full potential of how I want to be living my life. They see the limitations of it. So it's a real thing to think about. Um, all right, so here's another one. I'm just going to read this. My parents did absolutely nothing for me but feed me and give me a place to stay. My parents were divorced, and so at 17, out of a full I dropped out, got a full-time job, and have lived on my own since 17, and now I'm 25. That is impressive, right? That is sad, but that is impressive, right? Right there, I'm hearing someone with some real strength and some honesty to open up and to put that question there, right? But that's not an easy thing. You know how many young adults I talk to that say, "Oh, I'm just going to move out on my own, and forget my parents." Um, and one, they rarely do it, and two, they don't even realize like how hard that is. So what I'm hearing from you first is uh, that is amazing that you've been able to make it from 17 to 25. And the other thing that I'm thinking is uh, that's a lot of wounding. That's a lot of hurt that you have gone through. And uh, yeah, and so there's taking care of yourself financially, and that's important. There's being able to make it in life, that's important, putting a roof over your head and all that. But are you taking care of the inside of you? Right? I can only imagine how hard that was going through that situation to to feel like your parents aren't there for you and for them not to support you, right? That's some abandonment. That's probably some traumatic moments. So what I encourage you is that you continue to focus, um, and look at yourself. The healing you need, the support you need. You're obviously a strong person, um, but I wouldn't want the sometimes the past comes back. It affects future relationships. When we don't deal with the past, when we don't heal from the past, when we don't come to terms with those things. So that is, I wouldn't want that for you. I would want for you to find that internal safety and stability and strength as well. Okay. Um, Now I have a couple other questions here, and these were from uh, the group one. Actually, if you even watching this in replay or whatever it is, those conversations I talked about, I would love to know which you think are the most difficult to have uh, with your child or to have with your parents. Um, all right, a couple of questions from this week. Um, well, you say we should trust them again, but how do I know they're really ready? That was a question someone said. And I've been talking a lot about trust. Trust is very important. And it's not just trust that your child's going to do the right thing or they're going to follow through with their promises. I'm talking about also the trust on the other side. What it means for your adult child uh, or child of any age actually, to know that you believe in them, right? That you trust them, that they can figure it out, that not only are you there for them, but you believe in who they are and what they're doing. So they need those moments, right? And that's also trusting them is the experience that you need to help them work through. They're not going to get it right every time, right? You're going to give them a chance. You're going to back off, but you've had these conversations. You've equipped them, you've prepared them, you've helped them, and you've got a solid plan. And when they're struggling, um, and yeah, that's a time to say, okay, how can we help you figure it out? Right. So you have to have those moments where you back off and you give them a chance. Right? If you're constantly monitoring, if you're constantly telling them what to do, they don't have that chance. So there has to be that thing. All right. So uh, here's someone. They said best thing I think a parent can do is not hand them everything. Make them work for the things they want in life, and don't give children internet accessible devices until 16. All good, right? I'm not going to say a definitive age because I'm really big on responsibility. And someone else asked a question about that before. I won't look that up, but it was basically about how do we know they're ready for the responsibility? Like they're saying that they can handle it, um, yeah, and they want the freedom, they want the independence, but how do we know they're ready? Well, uh, maturity, right? You focus on maturity. I know I know 14-year-olds that are showing a lot more maturity than 20-year-olds, right? It's not about age, it's maturity. And here's how I define maturity. Uh, there is what is expected of you, kind of like what life demands, what you need to be doing to whatever it is, to manage your life, to stay on a schedule, to get your work done, to get your schoolwork done, to show up on time, to take care of yourself, right? There's all these things that are your responsibilities, that are your child's responsibilities. And when they are meeting those expectations, right? Expectations on their behavior, their responsibilities, all those type of things, they're showing maturity. Right? So for to that response about the internet or a phone, if I see a child at any age who is showing that they can manage that expectation, right? Then we're going to look for how can we give them more independence. And I completely agree. Giving your kids everything they want is not healthy, right? It's got to be on kind of that formula: maturity first. Show me the maturity, show me you can handle it, show me you can make good choices, and then you get more freedom, right? If you're not able to handle it, then we go back to an earlier stage. Same thing with adult children, right? It's uh, a lot of times, I don't mean to make this sound demeaning, but I see a lot of um, young adults. They're saying, treat me like an adult, give me all that independence, but they're not living like an adult, right? They're not managing those expectations. They're not taking responsibility. So that's not how it works. You don't get all the freedom and independence without the responsibility. I know those are tough conversations, but that's a reality of it. Um, yeah, well, I found that question. What if my young adult says that they were independent, that they want independence, but they're not showing they can handle it? How do I balance the freedom with accountability? That was the point that we were making before. It's they got to show the maturity first, right? And if they're not showing the maturity, then we need to find a lesser level of expectation for them to prove it or to show that they can handle it. All right, I'm going to do and thank you for these other comments. And again, I know you guys can't see all of them. Some of them are uh, done anonymously. All right, we'll dig into this one. This was one from earlier too. Every time I bring up responsibility, my son shuts down or blows up. How do I even start a conversation without a fight? Well, um, most of the time, there's not a connection, right? There's the relationship might not be that strong. The reason I say you start the very first conversation we talked about is understand why they're stuck. Right? What I see a lot of parents doing, and I'm not faulting them, I'm just trying to explain why it often doesn't work, is they jump into, hey, you got to make this change. You got to do this thing. And, they bring up the responsibilities. And one, that hasn't gone well in the past. Two, if your child is anxious about what they need to do, or they're feeling shame because they know they're screwing up, they feel like you're disappointed in them, they're not going to be receptive. Right? So just saying, hey, you need to make changes, and they're blowing up at you, they probably don't feel heard. They probably don't feel understood, and they're reacting out of that. I'm not saying it's appropriate. I'm not saying it's okay. It's kind of an immature response. But I would encourage you to come at it from a different direction. Take the time, put yourself in their shoes, right? And not about their choices, but about their experience. How must they be feeling in this moment? Like, why are they so ticked off, right? Are they protecting themselves from feeling like a loser, right? Do they feel like you're disappointed in them? Do they feel like a failure? Are they out of their mind anxious, right? There's a reason why they're reacting that way. Now, I know it's not fun, it's not enjoyable as a parent to be in that situation, getting yelled at or snapped at or whatever, but there's a reason, right? If you can dig into the reason, it's like a whole different conversation. Right? It's not like do these responsibilities. It's what what's going on with you? What are you feeling? Right? Why is this difficult for you? And start at that place. You'll get a lot further when your child feels understood. I will add this: there are times where you are just being straight up manipulated. Right? Your child or whoever you're talking to, uh, they are not in a place where they want change or they want to deal with things, and that might be where they are. They just don't want to change, and maybe they don't have to. I see that pattern again. I'm gonna be careful with this because I'm not trying to shame, but I see a lot of where there hasn't been accountability. Right? It's been more of an enabling situation, and that young adult doesn't really have a reason to change their behavior, and they don't want to talk about it, right? They think if I just push back that you will back off and I'll keep getting to do the same thing. That's why we have that conversation about accountability and making a plan and how to follow through, and that's where boundaries come in. That'll be a different talk, but there are times where you have to say, I am setting a boundary. We're not paying for this anymore, or we're not going to keep doing this. This is not okay. And many times that boundary is what then pushes the conversation into a more productive stance after the resistance, after the blow up. Okay. Um, and let me see. I want to just check for a couple of other things here. Sometimes I feel like I miss, I don't like the dead time, but this, I'm using a few pieces of new equipment, and it looks different. Sometimes it's harder to see exactly what I'm looking for. For example, the comments just disappeared. I don't know why I did that. Okay, well, that's technical stuff that I have to check out later. So I know a lot of people watch these talks afterwards. They watch the replay, and totally fine. I get it. We can't all be here at the scheduled time. So I will go back and look at the questions and the comments and the things like that and respond either in the next week or do some other post. I want to point out that for those of you who are in the Facebook group, the Unstuck journey, thank you for being here. But there's also others that need to hear about it. So tell them about it. They can go to the Living with Addiction page, but the Facebook group can just be looked up with the Unstuck journey. And yes, now I'm forgetting. Yeah, the failure to launch and addiction support. That's what it is. The Unstuck journey, the failure to launch and addiction support, therapist led by me. It's that Facebook group. That's a great place. Invite your friends. That's how they can look it up. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being connected. And I really wish that these comments would. Okay. I wonder if, because I enabled anonymous comments, if I don't know, it flashes on and off. So I am going to wrap up with that, and just one more time. I know these situations are difficult, and there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of struggle out there. right? You see your loved one struggling, you're struggling. Um, I don't want you to give up, right? I have seen it over and over and over. I've worked with families for years and years, decades, and some really tough situations. But I don't want you to give up because I've seen many of those situations turn around. You know, the hardest addictions, the strongest addictions being broken, the people who are in these stuck places, the relationships that are stuck and they don't know how they're going to move forward. They keep repeating the same thing over and over and over, and the hope is gone, right? How are we going to move out of this, right? But there is a way, and that's why I do these groups, these talks, is to give a little hope, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of encouragement, and hopefully a whole lot of information and steps that will help guide you and maybe even just motivate you to seek help on your own. So don't give up. Your family needs you, um, and it's worth it. So hey, until next time, you guys take care. I will talk to you later.